Joe Biden is on the run from his record and lying like crazy to try and escape accountability for the horrific devastation he and his party have created. All the while, they continue the very policies that are causing this horror show to go. It's time to tell crooked Joe Biden, you're fired.
You are fired. Donald Trump in something of a rebuttal last night after the State of the Union, firing Joe Biden. I wish that carried the weight that it deserves. And now, Led Zeppelin. Speaking of Led Zeppelin, Led Zeppelin was at the top of the charts when E. Jean Carroll says she ran into young Donald Trump in the dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman in New York City, and they had sexual relations, which she says were involuntary. Donald Trump, of course, said, I never met this woman. That never happened. I've shopped at Bergdorf Goodman, but never met any E. Jean Carroll, no sex in the dressing room. And the Democrats corrupting the judicial system in New York railroaded him. They changed the law in Albany, the Democrats did, so that they could prosecute Donald Trump, and then they changed the law back. Literally true. The statute of limitations was lifted, which is about the most corrupt, un-American thing that I've ever heard happen in an American courtroom. But never mind that. And they did it in the State House in Albany. But this woman, E. Jean Carroll, Donald Trump said never met her, never had, and she couldn't tell you exactly, she literally can't tell you what year it was, just approximately. So, it was, I don't know, somewhere around 83 or 84 or 92 or some point, but she doesn't know what year. And the Democrats in New York decided, well, that's credible enough anyway, so we'll just pretend that we believe her. And then she sued Donald Trump because Donald Trump said that didn't happen. She sued him for defamation of character because she said A and he said B. Oh, no, you can't say that wasn't true. Now, he was never convicted of that, but now he's been convicted of defamation. And he's been ordered to pay E. Jean Carroll, whose reputation is apparently very valuable, $83.3 million in a verdict in her recent defamation case. Now, the headline today is Trump cannot delay enforcement of $83.3 million verdict in E. Jean Carroll case. You may remember E. Jean Carroll being on the television on CNN with Manderson Pooper, where she talked about how, I guess she had sexual fantasies about rape. And she said that rape is sexy and really people shouldn't be too upset about any of that. Now we've got, out of New York City, the Reuters news agency, a federal judge on Thursday denied Donald Trump's request to delay enforcement of the writer, famous writer, is her writing career worth $83.3 million. E. Jean Carroll's $83.3 million verdict in a recent defamation case, the decision by U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan in Manhattan, he's a Democrat, adds to pressure on the former president to line up an acceptable bond by Monday so he can appeal. In the January 26 verdict, jurors in New York agreed with Carroll, naturally, a former Elle magazine advice columnist who was in line to make $83.3 million as a writer, that Trump had defamed her in June of 2019 by denying that he raped her in the mid-1990s in a Bergdorf Goodman department store dressing room in Manhattan. So he denies that this ever took place. She has absolutely no physical evidence of any kind. It doesn't make any sense at all. And they say, well, it's he said, she said. Oh, yeah? Well, that'll be $83.3 million to you, Donald Trump, right? And E. Jean Carroll with Manderson Pooper on CNN being a freakazoid This is several years ago now.
You don't feel like a victim?
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished. Which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations.
You think?
This was not sexual. It hurt. It just
Well, I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more.
You're fascinating to talk to.
You're fascinating to talk to. And he's going, like, I'm as gay as the day is long. You can stop flirting with me. I don't think rape is a fantasy that I have. You're a total freak. But there it is. And she was an advice columnist in Elle magazine, and nobody knew her name. But $83.3 million because he said that never happened. And she said, well, that's defamation. Lawyers stepped forward. You can't defame me by denying something of which I have accused you but have absolutely no evidence whatsoever. So that'll be $83.3 million to you. And if you're a radical leftist terrorist and you love Hamas, then, you'd vote with the jury in this case. The left is criminally insane, honestly. And I started just as we were going to the break back there. I was talking about how Joe Biden is going to magically build a port in the Gaza on the Mediterranean coast without putting anybody on the sand. That's magic. And then we're going to deliver shiploads of humanitarian supplies, which, kill them when you drop them out of planes. So I guess that new port can't arrive soon enough. And then when the ships arrive with humanitarian supplies, bands of gunmen with AK-47s and stolen vehicles are going to arrive and shoot anybody that gets in their way, and they're going to steal all the supplies because that's what gangs of thugs do. Welcome to the Middle Ages and the Middle East. And so when these humanitarian supplies are being delivered and there are U.S. troops and the Hamas people show up with AKs and start shooting everybody to steal everything, which is guaranteed to happen, it's not like there's any question, then what do U.S. troops do? Do they shoot back? Or do they just let all of the troglodytes steal everything? It's quite a plan they've got here. It sure is. All right, let's get to, because I really haven't been getting to the audio of the events from last night. Have I, Michael? No, I haven't. Nuh-uh. You sure you're right? Amazing stuff. Now, let's go into a go-go. Joe Biden barely got to the border last night. He barely got to the border because he's an open border, pro-Venezuelan gang president of the United States who wants more murder and more mayhem in the United States. Had the 14-year-old girl raped at knife point in Virginia by an illegal alien. The 22-year-old young woman murdered by an illegal alien from Venezuela, where the gangs from Venezuela are taking over the United States. All this good stuff. And he barely got to it last night. He's too busy talking about Ukraine. Got to keep in mind, Ukraine funneled millions of dollars to the Biden family. They paid Hunter Biden $1 million a year, just barely shy of $1 million a year, for a no-show job as a board member with Burisma, the gas company. He's never been to Ukraine, as far as we know. He doesn't speak Ukrainian. He doesn't know anything about the gas industry, and they paid him $1 million a year. And the New York Times is fine with that because, they're porn stars. Let's go to Bill Clinton from 1995. A little walk down memory lane when the Democrats cared about American sovereignty.
Not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. We will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
He was winking at an intern in the back of their room there. That's a good idea. I think very wonderful. illegal aliens. You notice he used illegal. It must have upset Nancy Pelosi back then, too, I'm thinking. She's upset today that Joe Biden said illegals. So she, with her weird eyelids going up and down, not in unison, and her teeth trying to pop out of her mouth. Even Barack Obama in 2012, that was Bill Clinton in 1995. Barack Obama in 2012 and that was his State of the Union, by the way. Barack Obama at his State of the Union in 2012 was also a big fan of, illegal aliens not being allowed into the country and controlling our border. But boy, the Democrats have changed.
I believe as strongly as ever that we should take on illegal immigration. That's why my administration has put more boots on the border than ever before.
More boots on the border than ever before. Now, the Democrats yesterday were very upset about anybody using the word illegal. Illegal, right? Here's Governor Greg Abbott of Texas. They were very, very angry with Greg Abbott. They still are, because he put busloads of illegals. He put illegals on buses and sent them to Chicago and New York and Washington, D.C. and all that. And they're very furious. You can't call them illegal. No person is illegal. No, but the things they do are illegal. How stupid are you? Semantics are an impossible feat for them, I guess. But Greg Abbott was asked yesterday, hey, Barack Obama in 2012 was all for securing our border. Bill Clinton in the 1990s was all for securing our border. Greg Abbott sends the busloads up to Democrat-run cities, and they become furious. And then we learn that Joe Biden has flown more than 350,000 illegal aliens over our border from B-pole countries everywhere and scattered them around the country to 43 airports. And they refuse to tell us which airports, as though we work for them instead of the other way around. Governor Greg Abbott yesterday.
Things have changed a little bit, it looks like. And the Democrats have changed a lot. The Democrats used to agree with where Republicans are now, and that is to actually secure our border. Imagine that.
Well, they don't believe that anymore, do they? Governor Greg Abbott, who is a good egg, I think. I think he's one of the good ones, and he's brave. He's a good man. The fence, the barrier that Joe Biden and the Democrats built around the Capitol yesterday, because they're afraid that maybe 20,000 screaming Chinamen who came in across our border illegally might attack the Capitol. Hey, that's why an entire army division of Chinese young men came across our border. They attacked the Capitol the night of the State of the Union. Took it over. It'd be a hell of a Hollywood movie, wouldn't it? Or maybe the Venezuelan gangs. They were afraid of the Venezuelan gangs. It kind of turns out that they were afraid of their own left-wing, anti-Semite, pro-Hamas forces, and there were hundreds of them out there wearing matching black T-shirts that say Biden's legacy is genocide, and big banners indicting, and they're chanting, Biden, Biden, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide, because they're on the side of the genocidal racists, Hamas, and just amazing. Greg Abbott last night.
The symbolism of tonight could not be more stark, because as the president ascends to his speaking location tonight, he's going to be surrounded by a fence on the outside protecting the president from his fellow Americans, while at the very same time the president refuses to erect a fence protecting Americans from illegal immigrants, some of whom are known terrorists and known criminals coming into our country.
Well, he's got a lot of security, Joe Biden does, so he doesn't give a flying hoot about you or your children, Greg Abbott.
There's no word President Biden can say tonight that would counteract the actions that he has taken to cause total chaos in the entire country, including the death of Laken Riley and too many others.
Total chaos and too many others. Say her name, Laken Riley. She's not beloved by the Democrats because she's not hanging out with drug dealers and her boyfriend didn't shoot a police officer. Like Breonna Taylor, who's a hero of the left, but Laken Riley, they spit on her grave. Right now, We're living in a magical time. It's the Omaha Steak Semi-Annual Sale. Get 50% off the entire website and save on mouth-watering favorites today. All you have to do is go to omahasteaks.com and shop the semi-annual sale. You can load up on all the delicious flavors that you crave and get them at half price. And when you use my promo code PLANTE, that's me, Plante, at checkout, you're going to get an extra $30 off your order because you hang out with me. Save big on delicious, tender, juicy steaks, beefy burgers, and a whole lot more. With Omaha Steaks, every purchase is backed by their unconditional money-back guarantee. You just go to omahasteaks.com, shop the semi-annual sale today. Don't forget to use the code PLANT at checkout to get an extra $30 American off your order. Hurry, because this deal isn't going to last forever. Kickstart your spring grilling today. That's omahasteaks.com. The promo code is PLANT at checkout. A minimum purchase and restrictions may apply. Visit omahasteaks.com for details. Yes. And who wants to volunteer to go over and drop food on the Gaza? Come on, it's not what it used to be. It could be, well, you know. We've got more coming up from last night. Some more dumb things that Joe Biden said. And Oregon. I've got to get to the crazy people at Oregon legalizing heroin and fentanyl. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. I still got more State of the Union coming up, and Oregon legalizing heroin and fentanyl. But another fun story today because Democrats are everywhere. The Daily Mail. LGBTQ nonprofit founder is finally arrested on fraud and money laundering charges after 2 years on the run, after she transferred $150,000 of COVID relief funds into her own bank account. Ruby, Colorado, allegedly stole at least $150,000 by transferring the money to bank accounts in El Salvador. Naturally, your dollar goes a lot farther in El Salvador. But aren't we all fleeing El Salvador and coming here because it's such a beeple? But Ruby, Colorado, founder of a Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit organization that served homeless LGBTQ plus youth, has been arrested on fraud and money laundering charges 2 years after she left the U.S. Ruby, Colorado, a Democrat, 53 years old, received more than $1.3 million over 2 years. The Paycheck Protection Program. We were just throwing money away, throwing it out. And Ruby, Colorado fled to El Salvador after stealing all the money. No problem. Soul Finger by the Bar-Kays. Now, Democrats are filled with bad ideas, and very often their bad ideas get people killed. Fortunately for Democrats, they don't care. So that's not a thing. You know, people give me a hard time for making fun of killing Gazans with kindness by dropping pallets of food on them, and they run out and stand under the pallets, and then they get crushed. And, but the Democrats, they do this stuff all day long. Now, in Oregon, in 2020, they had a ballot initiative they called Measure 110. Measure 110 decriminalized all drug use. That means heroin and Oxycontin and fentanyl. Perfectly, well, it's decriminalized. It's not a criminal charge. If they caught you on the sidewalk injecting yourself, I'm going like this, like I'm injecting my arm with a syringe, injecting yourself, the police would write you a ticket for $100. Which, according to all reports, were completely ignored by all the drug addicts on the street, right? Because they're junkies. What do they care about a $100 ticket? And this is their idea. They're making things better, you see. So Measure 110 was enacted because Democrats voted for it. And it was supported by George Soros, who is a cancer on the planet Earth. And his Drug Policy Alliance donated $5 million to get Measure 110 passed. Also, Mark Zuckerberg's wife, contributed $500,000 in the effort to get Measure 110 passed in 2020. All right. Now, it had the predictable results. If you don't have your head jammed into a dark and remote location, the results are pretty obvious. Let me say also in implementing this, they had legalized pot already, and they collected tax revenue on pot. And they're proud to say that they took the tax revenue that they collected from the legal sale of marijuana in stores, $300,000 worth of pot revenue, presumably not all of the pot tax revenue, but $300,000 worth, to implement their new policy of not enforcing the law when it comes to drugs with Measure 110. So they spent $300,000 in pot revenue, and that's real good. Now they set up what they call a helpline, and they've spent $2 million since 2020 on the helpline. Now, here are the results of the $2 million helpline. It's 2024 now. Passed it in 2020. The $2 million helpline has received 130 phone calls. Several years now, 130 phone calls have been received. That's not even close to that's like one phone call a week, right? One phone call a week for their $2 million hotline. Wonder how many people they had staffing. They're probably sitting around smoking dope and doing coke. 130 calls received, but only 18 people were referred to any place to get help with their drug addiction. All right? $2 million helpline, 2020 law. It's now 2024. 130 calls received. 18 people were referred for help. There is no evidence that any of those 18 people actually sought out help after talking to the helpline. So the $2 million helpline did nothing. All right, one call a week, referred 18 people. The 18 people didn't seek help, and that's fine. But here's the success story for the Democrats. There has been a 346% spike in opioid deaths. So that's where the big win is for the left, because they kill people. Now, let's go to an Oregon state representative. He's a Republican, amazingly. They have a few, not along the coast so much. Jeff Helfrich is his name. Jeff Helfrich, Republican, in the state house there.
I think that tells a story and that reverberates through the country that says this is a failed policy. Do not try that.
Seems reasonable enough, doesn't it? I mean, that's what you should have known beforehand. Hey, let's see, if we legalized heroin and fentanyl, what would that do for the junkies that are passed out on the sidewalks of Portland, Oregon? I don't know. Let's get $5 million from George Soros and $500,000 from Mark Zuckerberg and or his wife, and we'll implement it, and then we'll find out. Now, I could have told them. They could have called me and said, hey, Chris, what would happen if we legalized heroin and fentanyl? And I'll explain that you'd have a 346 spike in opioid deaths. That's what would happen. And you'd spend a lot of money doing a lot of things that don't work, but more people would die, right? But the ACLU used to be the American Civil Liberties Union. Now there's something else, but I can't say it on the radio because of FCC rules. So the the ACLU has a woman in Oregon. She's with the ACLU of Oregon, Jessica Maravilla. And she's like, oh, no, you can't, because now they're in the midst of re-criminalizing the drugs, and it's been passed through the State House, and they're waiting for the governor to sign the re-criminalization of drugs, maybe to fight the 346% spike in opioid deaths since they passed Measure 110. And here is Oregon ACLU Representative Jessica Maravilla.
Black, brown, low-income, and disabled people will continue to be jailed at the highest rates.
Disabled. My favorite part is the disabled. Black, brown, and disabled. Well, are these the drug addicts? Well, yes, of course. That's what we're talking about. They'll continue to be jailed. And honestly, I've always said I don't think jail is the right thing for a drug addict, but involuntary incarceration in rehab programs, less expensive than jail, a better bet than jail. Makes no sense to put a drug addict in jail for being a drug addict. You know, they're the drug dealers. That's a different thing because they get people killed and all that. So this is black, brown, and they're like, oh, no, you can't recriminalize because disabled drug addicts will be thrown in jail. Black, brown, and disabled? Really? How about like dwarves? More dwarves than non-dwarves? They're pretty amazing. They succeeded in creating a 346% spike in opioid deaths, and now about 4 years later, they're undoing what they did because they're so dumb. Now, they did this in Holland years ago, and they discovered that it led to a 346% spike in opioid deaths, or whatever the number was there. Just amazing. I am telling you, that is funny. Womp, womp, womp. Just great. Yeah, let's go to Joe Biden because he's a big dope, isn't he? Biggest dope you ever did see. Joe Biden, last night at the State of the Union, soundbite number 12, he finally got around. We played this. Marjorie Taylor Greene yelled. He just started talking about Viva la Immigration when Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congresswoman, yelled at him, say Laken Riley's name, and then he called her Lincoln Logs Riley or something, and what an idiot. And then he started talking about the really important stuff. Did he talk about crime and open borders? And he didn't. He talked about Lincoln Riley, who is the coach of the football team at USC, and he's a complete idiot. And he's talking about having to come to Jesus with, that wasn't in the speech, just on the side, with the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, but not with the Ayatollah in Tehran. But then he's got this thing about shrinkflation. Somebody explained the word to him recently, and like a 5-year-old, he's been obsessing over the word shrinkflation, and he's really upset that there are fewer Snicks in a Snickers bar.
Too many corporations raise prices to pad their profits, charging more and more for less and less.
What?
That's why we're cracking down on corporations that engage in price gouging and deceptive pricing, from food to healthcare to housing. In fact, the snack companies think you won't notice if they change the size of the bag and put a hell of a lot fewer, same size bag.
All the Republicans are laughing at him.
No, I'm not joking.
He's not joking.
It's called shrinkflation. Pass Bobby Casey's bill and stop this. I really mean it.
He really means it. He's not kidding. What a maroon. And the Democrats...
You probably all saw that commercial on Snickers bars. You get charged the same amount, and you got about, 10% fewer Snickers in it.
The Democrats, he's a mentally impaired child, and it's not nice to encourage and to laugh at that kind of behavior. He needs help. Someone send helper. There are fewer Snicks in the Snickers bar. Shrinkflation, he learned the phrase. Now, what a moron. He's been alive for 100 years. You know, a candy bar used to be like 3 cents when he was a kid, maybe 5 at most. It cost $1 to go to the opera. Now it's $320, and they still have the same size theater. This is it's a fundamental disconnect from capitalism, from free markets. Over time, prices tend to go up with most things, not everything, but with most things, prices tend to go up over time. And that's true of a bag of Fritos. And he's like, wait a minute, we got a bag of Fritos at home. My best girl and I last night I was like, should I bring over the bag of Fritos? We'll pour it out on the table and count the Fritos. See how many Fritos we have in the bag. Just amazing. And then it's the building a pier for Hamas, which is a genocidal, racist organization hell-bent on the total destruction of the state next door. And Joe Biden is their primary helper.
The United States has been leading international efforts to get more humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters.
Ammo.
No U.S. boots will be on the ground.
Right.
A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day.
And the Democrats, a lot of them look confused. We hate the Jews, but
Israel must do its part.
Israel must do its part. Well, they are doing their part. They're fighting the enemies of civilization, the genocidal lunatics of radical Islam, who are here to destroy Western civilization. And I told you the story yesterday now. The idiots in the Biden administration are politely asking Iran, that has enriched their uranium supplies up to 60% purity. They're on the precipice of having a massive stockpile of enriched uranium suitable for the construction of nuclear weapons. And their so-called JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that Barack Obama and bolt-neck John Kerry cobbled together, allow the Iranians to spin centrifuges, enrich uranium, advance their ballistic missile program, maintain secret military sites that we can't get into. They've told us what their intentions are. Hamas has told us what their intentions are. What's that idiotic saying they love so much? When someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. Well, they've told us 1,000 times, and they butcher people and cut them up and kidnap them and rape them. They've told us who they are. Believe them. This was the moment when Joe Biden was interrupted by the father of a U.S. Marine whose son was blown up during the botched evacuation of Afghanistan. And the father, Gold Star father, stood up during the speech and started yelling at him. He was clearly quite agitated. The cameras got on him quickly. The police dragged him away. They shot him in the hallway, just like Ashley Babbitt. All right, they didn't really. But he was a guest of Congressman Brian Mast, himself a great combat veteran. And the man stood up and wanted to give Joe Biden a piece of his mind. His name is Steve Nicouli. Steve Nicouli was the guest of Congressman Brian Mast from Florida. And he had had enough when Joe Biden was rambling on. His son was Marine Lance Corporal Kareem Nicouli, who was blown up that terrorist attack in Kabul.
America's safer today than when I took office.
No, it's not.
Year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history. It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add.
Every American voted against. Every American voted, I might add. Now, that last part is a gem, isn't it? This boy's brain is so broken. His American, and it's safer now than it's ever. That is just a flagrant, outrageous lie. They keep lying to us. I shared with you the numbers yesterday about crime rates in the United States, and they love to compare to 2022 because it peaked out under Joe Biden 2022 and dipped a bit in 2023. But 2023 compared to 2019 is much, much higher. The murders, the carjackings, the mayhem, the fatal drug overdoses, everything is worse. The man is a complete buffoon. And was it every American voted against his, is that what he said? Every American voted against his American Rescue Plan.
Through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add.
He might add that. And I shared with you the story yesterday from the Washington Times. Biden's claims of reduction in crime defy data. And they certainly do. His false claims defy the data. I told you yesterday he was going to lie about it, and he lied about it. Gun assaults are 42% higher than they were in 2019. Aggravated assaults, 8% higher. Carjackings are up 93% compared to 2019. Homicide rates, let's just go with New York and their homicide rates, 2019. Washington, D.C., we had the highest homicide rate in more than a quarter of a century last year. But he didn't include that. Murder in New York, 23% higher than it was in 2019. Auto theft, 194% higher than it was in 2019. But because of the Wuhan and the lockdowns and all that, crime skyrocketed. And it dipped a little in 23. Hey, look, it's the greatest reduction in 60 years. And he made that false claim last night. Liar, liar, depends on fire. Now, Republican Alabama freshman Senator Katie Britt gave the Republican response And she has been great. I've played audio of her on the radio show before. She's brand new. She had a couple of good lines that Joe Biden was in elected office before she was born. She's a wonderful senator. She's lovely. She's very articulate. She's been great in Senate hearings, telling the truth and speaking up. She really has been. Last night, I thought that she was overproduced. It wasn't really a good use of Katie Britt. The speech that she had was too long. It was too up and down. You got the sad things, then you got a laugh line, then more sad things, then another laugh line. I think it was poorly produced. But I think she's great, and she's got a brilliant future in politics. I think that's true. But I was getting a lot of texts about her being breathless and difficult to take her serious. She was in her kitchen, so I mean that part of the production was. But they overwrote a script that was overwrought, and I don't think they did Senator Katie Britt, any favors yesterday. I also should have mentioned, and I didn't, that the Marine Corps Gold Star father, Steve Nakui, was arrested when he heckled Joe Biden, as Joe Biden saying, "Oh, we've never been safer." And he couldn't take it, so he shouted. He was arrested, and he's been charged with a misdemeanor. And the Democrats will probably try to put him in jail for as long as they can because they're not liberals, they're the left. And their sons are going around carjacking everybody, so they want to put Marine Corps fathers from California in jail. Arrested and charged him with crowding, obstructing, or incommoding. Incommoding, that's apparently against the law now. But that's pretty ridiculous stuff. Gold Star father shouted out criticism President Biden during the State of the Union. Has been arrested, 51-year-old father of Marine killed during the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Yelling about the Abbey Gate, and they put him in jail. Also, the radical pro-Hamas people outside forcing the motorcade to be redirected. The police arrested one man, not one of the protesters, because he revved his engine near the pro-jihad protesters, all Democrats, crazy, mentally ill people.